Welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. We're a bunch of mega fans giving you the news discussion and, of course, a whole lot of opinions about Brandon's works and the Cosmere. I'm Eric, and joining me is Ian.
Hey, I'm Weiry, and I'm definitely not panicking internally right now.
No, nonsense. Also joining us is Alyx.
Hi, I am Featherwriter, and it's excitement. That's what's happening.
And we have a special guest who's kind of important in the Brandon Sanderson fandom. Brandon Sanderson, hey, how's it going?
Hey,
Hi.
how you doing?
Good.
I'm going to apologize to the fans for replacing my one of my normal streams with this. So I am signing copies of the Way of Kings leatherbound, the first signature, they call it, that'll get bound in. So if you were one of those who is waiting for a copy of the Way of Kings leatherbound that hasn't arrived yet because you bought the second wave, then I potentially might be signing your book right now.
How many more thousands of those do you need to sign?
I think we're down to 3,000.
Okay,
so.
all right.
Wow.
That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
That was the voice of Kara. Hi, Kara.
Hi, Kara.
Hi, Kara.
Hi, Kara.
Kara's excellent. We did an interview with her in the summer.
Vacation around these streams so that she could be here. Left right after the last one and came back right before this one. So
it's been quite a long time since we've interviewed you on 17th Shard. I think the last time was actually in 2010 before Way of Kings actually came out.
Nice. Back when you guys said, what should we name ourselves?
Yes, exactly.
And I said, oh, you should name yourselves the 17th Shard. That's a cool little nod to something in the universe. Before anyone, you really don't know what they are even yet. But
yeah, are we going to get something of them?
What's that?
Are we going to get something from them eventually?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it depends on if I'm able to write the Silverlight novella, right? Because they would be involved in that.
Oh, okay.
There's just a lot of stuff to do.
There is a lot of stuff to do. No one can doubt that. And in that interview in 2010, there was an amazing line where you said, Way of Kings was the length it needed to be. The next books will be shorter.
Yeah.
But they've all gotten better.
I tried really hard.
Yeah.
I tried real hard. They just ended up at the length they needed to be.
I totally agree, to be honest.
Next book will be shorter.
Yeah.
If I say that, then when one turns out to be shorter, then people won't complain.
Yeah, right. No one will complain.
I was also suffering a lot of pressure from Tom at that point to write the book shorter because Way of Kings had not come out yet and been successful. And he was really worried he was really worried that my book was starting at the length that the longest Wheel of Time books had grown into. And also, the ebook revolution hadn't happened.
True.
Rebook revolution happened in 2010. And the fact that my books are less than 25% read in print anymore has really, the publishers really, number one, they sell really well, but also that publishers laid off on that pressure on me. By the time Words of Radiance came out, they didn't care nearly as much at what the length of the books would be anymore. And part of the reason I said that is I'd been promising Tom, he's like, you have to write these shorter. And I'm like, all right, I'll make the next one shorter. But then he stopped saying that. And so I just wrote it the length it needed to be.
Oh, man.
Get away with it.
Less than 25% though, print sales?
Yeah, I think opening week it was less than 25%. It might catch up. Like opening week tends to skew digital and audiobook. It was 50% audiobook and like 30% digital or something like that, ebook, opening week. And then the print book kind of surged back. And so I don't know if it's the same right now, but for the longest time, the average you could kind of count on is 2/5 audiobook, 2/5 ebook, 1/5 print.
Wow.
For my books.
Interesting.
And different books hit that differently, and different weeks in the book's life will hit that differently. Once paperback comes out, paperback tends to take a larger chunk than hardcover does. But I'm not sure If that's more because some people are still kind of discovering the books in bookstores and just buying the paperbacks and working through them that way, I think.
And the paperbacks are cheaper.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I actually just got my print copy of Rhythm of War last week, so I hadn't gotten one from my bookshelf yet.
Oh,
yeah.
Well,
yeah, there we go.
I definitely don't still need to get an Oathbringer.
So, an Oathbringer? What? Well, we're buying ebooks. That's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, my friends talk about how you can't read my books in bed unless they're ebook.
It's true, though.
Yeah.
If you doze even a little, you will break your nose. Right? So
it's a little easier to drop the phone on your face than a Stormlight book.
Alan talks about that. Alan Layton, who is Layton from Bridge 4.
Right.
He's like, these books, I can't hold these books, Brandon. I can't lie back and go like this with them.
No, they are beefy books, and Rhythm of War is.
That they are.
You get to a page 1,000, and it's like, oh, there's a lot of book left still. Yep.
And you wouldn't have it any other way.
Yep. How have you been doing with the success of Rhythm of War? How have you felt since its release?
Really great. It's it's sold really well. It did about 50% better than Oathbringer, which is what you would expect after picking up fans over the years, right? And so we are kind of right at that cap of what an epic fantasy can do. Without breaking into the mainstream, right? There's not a whole lot more I feel that we can grow, which is like I'm already selling what George sold before he got his TV show, and Where the Wheel of Time Ended, what it was selling, right? And so it feels like that's kind of a soft cap on the big, thick, epic fantasies of just the people willing to read them. Like if you read fantasy at this point, you either have read one of my books or you've deliberately decided not to, is most likely, right? Or you read one and you didn't like it, so you didn't continue. But like, I don't have a lack of brand awareness among the epic fantasy readership, right?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And so I'm pretty satisfied with those numbers. I would be happy with those numbers for the rest of my career, right? If we manage to get some media properties taking off, then we might find a larger audience. It just depends, but I mean, I'm not going to complain, right?
Yeah.
Last year was the first year we finally outsold George.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Granted, he doesn't have a TV show propelling him anymore, and whatnot. And so for the first year, I was the best-selling epic fantasy author in the world for yearly totals. So.
Awesome. That's fun.
That is fun. That's more about the fact that George's television show ended than the fact, right? Like
it still counts. It still counts.
Details.
That week when I beat Dan Brown and knocked him out of the number one spot, right? But he'd been there for 9 weeks, right? It's like I knocked Dan Brown out of the number one spot. Yeah, it's like a boxer coming in after someone has fought 9 people and you get to get the knockout on the champ. You're like, hey, look at that. I totally took out the champ, which technically I did.
Then you can still say it and not say the other part.
But it's not exactly, yeah. That's the fun thing about epic fantasy. Like we can have as good a first week as anybody, but the thrillers hang on longer. Right? They sell in airports and things like that. And let's just say book 4 of a series of 1,000-page books isn't going to be as big a impulse buy as the new Dan Brown book.
Yeah.
Where we do get to dominate is Amazon has a most read section, right? They have a bestseller list of most sold and both most read. And we get to dominate the most read because it takes forever to finish one of these books. And so, like Oathbringer was the number 1 most read book on Amazon for until like mid-February after it released or something like that. And I haven't looked on this one, but it's probably similar. Just lots of things to read, or lots of pages to read, I should say.
It's true. That's a fact.
We did have President Obama's book come out, and I don't know if they split that by fiction and nonfiction. And so I got knocked out by the Obamas twice this year.
Oh no, so sad.
Yeah, I'm still number one. On Amazon as of this recording. So,
Nice.
do they split by fiction and nonfiction? So who's number 2? But yeah. Harry Potter's number 2. Okay, Harry Potter is often number 1 or number 2, particularly following the holidays. People get
that makes
Harry
sense.
Potter books. But yeah, this is only counting audiobooks and ebooks, not print books. Obviously, Amazon has not yet managed to find a way to embed a chip into your print books to determine what you're reading and how long. So
I'm sure they're working on that somewhere in the headquarters.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we kicked Argent off the show, so you wouldn't have to, Brandon.
Oh, what happened to Argent?
Oh, nothing. We figured you'd be talking plenty. So we didn't want to have too many people on. But
that makes sense.
Yeah. We did say if one of the 3 of us, befell a horrible accident before tonight, that somebody should probably check that Argent wasn't responsible.
Yeah.
Trying to get a spot.
It's true.
How's the podcast? Or I guess this is the stream. It's not a live stream. How's the stream been going?
The podcast's been going really good. This is, I think, going to be episode 138. We started right at Oathbringer time, doing weekly and then bi-weekly. And we've trained people, perhaps not surprisingly, given that they read long epic fantasy, to watch ridiculously long YouTube videos. We did a podcast on Ba Edo Mishram, and that was over 3 hours, and that was one of our best viewed ones. So they loved that. They're like, wow, it went so fast for 3 hours. It's like, all right, cool. So
and we just hit 10,000 subscribers.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah,
congratulations.
Yeah.
On your way to that silver play button.
Yes, at 100.
Yes.
Yeah.
True.
Yep.
You can go next to the Stabby Award that Eric's going to be getting.
Yes, our fantasy had its Stabby Awards, and we won Best Site. So apparently, I'm getting a dagger soon, but it has not arrived
we
yet.
can fight with ours.
Excellent, perfect. Mm-hmm. That's good YouTube content right there, Brandon.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm. Make that the thumbnail. We'll get all the clicks.
That's a quality sketch right there.
Yeah. So I'm curious. Obviously, especially with the live streams this year, you get lots of questions from the fandom. How do you feel about the sort of culture around Words of Brandon? Do you ever worry that the fandom takes them too seriously? Or you worry about
yes, I do worry. I try to explain, a Word of Brandon is not written in stone, and I think that people know this by now. Word of Brandon is how I am planning to do it, but it's not canon until it's in the books, right? And things get changed as books are being worked on and better ideas come around. But the thing is, I grew up in Wheel of Time fandom, right? I am used to this sort of thing. I'm accustomed to it. It doesn't frighten me. I'm just used to dealing with it. It's part of fandom to me, and I would certainly rather have this than the alternative, which is no one paying any attention or caring, right?
That's true.
The opposite is far, far worse. But I do worry that sometimes people take them a little too seriously. Mostly the ones that I give off the cuff while I'm doing a live signing session, like when I'm at a book signing, trying to write people's names and phrases in their books while they're asking me questions. And I flub those way more often than I flub ones on a live stream where I'm not having to track people's names.
That's true.
And things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I will often, as you know, I've said this many times, I will often answer the question I think people are asking rather than the question they actually ask, because something's on my mind I've been thinking about, and they'll ask a question and then I'll be like, oh yeah, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, that's not what I asked. I'm like, oh, sorry.
Like Oathbringer's an honor blade. That was a good one.
Oh yeah. That like that, where they think I'm dropping some big material and I'm just making a misstep, right? I'm just like, yeah.
Oh, whoa. Alyx is being attacked by her cat.
Yes.
We knew this would happen.
It's been known to happen on Shardcast before.
Many times.
I did not bring Jello. So
that's okay. Jello's great, though.
Jello is great, but Jello is way more distracting than a cat.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
She doesn't try to eat your equipment.
She likes to bonk her head against the microphone sometimes. So we do very quickly try to mute ourselves when Dalish is up on and around. Hopefully
we're gonna have to
go to sleep back there.
Mic on me next time Jello comes on, because he just loves the lapel mic.
Yeah.
He gets laser tight focus on that.
Yeah. He loves it. And speaking of Words of Brandon, we are not going to have like physics testy questions. We're going to get into some spoiler questions.
Okay.
But there's some particular ones, but it's not like this time bubble and this time bubble with this diagram. We would actually like to come
bubbles
back.
and this sort of thing. I mean, I ask for that in some ways by telling them that, like, I'm going to use the magic to make FTL happen and things like that. And so I'm like seeding it, right? I'm basically saying, you should play with this and see what you can figure out and see if you can anticipate the way that I'm going to use it for some of these space travel things. So it's not like they're asking questions they shouldn't be asking. It's just getting very minute detailed physics answers out of me when I do not have my notes in front of me. It's just, like, when I get those questions, I often will just go to my team and say, hey team, look this up. Do we have an answer to this yet? Do I need to make an answer to this right now? And that sort of thing. And it can be several days for me to even get a question like that answered when I'm working on the books.
Right.
Makes sense. Yeah. Speaking of Jello, I don't know if you've seen, there was fan art recently of Jello as Odium and you as Dalinar saying that he cannot have your pen.
Oh, wow.
That one's very good.
One. Adam's pulling it up for me right now.
It's pretty great.
Super cute.
That should go on the next meme review. Oh, that's great. Yeah, that is really nice.
I'll edit it in on screen over our faces or something. Yeah. But it is excellent.
That's pretty great.
Thank you to the artist. I do not know the artist off the top of my head. We'll put you on the
fat Jello on top of a pile of buttons that Steve Argyle did. I want to turn that into a shirt, except make it like a fat dragon on top of a pile of books, and just be like book hoarder.
That's a good shirt idea. That's solid.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty cool.
So I have a bit of a legacy question for you.
Yeah.
So in 1966. Ursula K. Le Guin coined the term Ansible for devices that facilitate faster than light communication.
Yep.
Since then, the term has been used pretty widely in the science fiction genre and by you in Words of Brandon.
Uh-huh.
In Stormlight, you have the term Fabrial and Artifabrian for magical technology. How would you feel if Fabrial escaped you and
man, that would be awesome.
Okay.
Right? That'd be really incredible. So yeah, that'd be great.
It's just a cooler, like, in-world term than Magitech.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, it sounds more organic.
Yeah, like something that they'd actually say. And with the fandom, it's really quite astonishing to, like, compare the difference between the fandom now versus 2010, right? Like, Wheel of Time's not done. It's just a little different. You know,
that was about when I got into the books, was 2010, like right before all of the Wheel of Time stuff started coming out.
That's the really fun thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's when I joined.
People who were reading Warbreaker over the summer of what was that 2006? Actually, I think it was.
I think that was a little earlier than when I joined
and offering feedback on it. Like, that's a completely different era, also.
Yeah, I don't know if you can do that again for the sequel, because there's just going to be way too many people.
I mean, I would want to release it as I write it, but I don't know if I'd be able to do a live beta test or a beta read like I did on that. There'd just be too much feedback.
Yeah. You know, just
there's already almost too much feedback from our regular beta reads.
What? No way. I didn't notice.
No way.
Just have like 20,000 people in a Google Doc trying to leave comments. That'll go great.
Yeah. And also, like, people just know about the Cosmere now, as opposed to 2010, where they had, like, hints at the end of Mistborn. But they're like, wait, what? So, it has people knowing more about the Cosmere changed how you've written the books? Like, have you put in more? Have you, like, more connections, less than you planned?
Yeah. No, I've put in more. I always wanted there to be more, but my instinct said don't do it. This is because people were pretty anti-continuity for a long time, right? Like, they wanted continuity in a series, but this sort of stuff, there was just... it's a hobby horse of mine, a pet theory, I should say, that I think that the people becoming familiar with the internet and becoming comfortable with fan wikis and stuff is what made the MCU possible, right? And is what made the Cosmere work. Because you can, like, WandaVision, which I just watched the first 2 episodes of.
Yeah, me too.
Doesn't feel really like good. That could exist in a previous incarnation without the internet for people to go look up and be like, who were these? Yeah, what's going on here? Who are these cameos? And all of that stuff. It's just too weird to exist in a pre-internet era, in my my gut says. And, you know, my publisher was saying, don't do this. If you don't want people to feel like they're diving into something too deep. That will scare them away. And so I was really cagey with it at first, as you can just tell from the books. And it turns out we're in a different era. We're in an era where this sort of thing is not so threatening. And also, my popularity has influenced that as well, right? Like, the fact that the books sell really well means that there are good fan wikis, which also means that there are people talking about the stuff behind the scenes in the books. And it just means that I can be a little bit more free with that. I still want each series to have its own identity, right? And when I do crossover things, I want them to use the crossover each in their own way, if that makes sense, so that it doesn't just become a big hodgepodge of ideas and things like that. But the further I've gone, the more comfortable I've been making these crossovers happen, and I've been able to experiment and see which ones work best and what people like. And I've also come to better understand that it's okay for there to be a chapter where Vasher explains deep Cosmere magics, as long as that's not the core of the book. People can read that and be like, oh yeah, he knows lots of weird stuff. Oh well. And it to them will read like Star Trek technobabble. But to those who follow these things, it'll give some structure and kind of delve a little bit further into how some of this works. So I'm more comfortable with it now. I don't think I would have put a scene like the Vasher one I just referenced in one of my books the first few years I was writing. I might have had to explain the magic in his world only. Right. But explaining magic in a more, this is how it works on a fundamental level is a different thing.
Do you worry that the connections have been too much? Because I know you've been saying with Rhythm of War that like we're kind of in a new era where there are more intersections than like previous books.
I'd be curious what fans think about that, right? I don't think we're at too much right now. I think that basically we're at a point where I have to start doing it more because, again, the sort of popularity and things like this are meaning that people are really looking forward to some of the big crossover stuff. And for some of the big crossover stuff to work, it can't just come out of nowhere, right? You have to have seen, this is one of my philosophies on all sorts of storytelling. You have to have seen the seeds ahead of time. That, you know, once in a while you do want a surprise left hook to hit someone completely unexpectedly, But for the most part, in my books, I want you to be able to anticipate things. It's a feature, not a bug, that the fandom can figure out what's going to happen in upcoming books, at least to me. I have to accept it that way, because otherwise you'll go down a path of madness, right? Where you will be, as some of my writing colleagues, trying to change things last minute because the fans guessed it. Where if you did your foreshadowing right, they will guess it. They just have to be okay with that, and you have to be okay with that. It has to be a feature, not a bug.
And maybe we'll transition into full Rhythm of War spoilers. So we'll probably just talk about spoilers from here on out. But
spoilers for Rhythm of War and all the Stormlight Archive, including Dawn Shard, I assume.
Yeah. And maybe Cosmere stuff, I guess. So I guess full spoilers. Yeah. But
full spoilers on the whole Cosmere.
Yeah.
All right.
A full published Cosmere.
Stormlight 10 ends.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Which death rattle is this? No.
What have we done?
But I loved how, like, people can guess Kaladin's going to swear the fourth ideal in the book, right? Like, that's not surprising that happens, but...
Like, seeing in the third book that he failed to is basically a promise on my part that this is going to get resolved. Either he's going to permanently be unable to swear it, and we're going to go a different direction, which is a possibility, or he's going to swear it. That's, like, that whole scene with him in book 3 is promising that, right?
Yep, exactly.
That something's going to happen there. If you know anything about structure, the fact that I had him swear oaths twice and then fail the third time, you're like, oh, I see what's going on here, right? It was really important to have him fail on one of those. But at the same time, you could guess where it was going.
But still the application of the scene and how he swore the oath, even though you can kind of even figure out what the oath is, right?
Yes.
But like how it happened, like that brought me to tears, honestly. Like that scene's incredible.
People were guessing what that oath was after reading the first book, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty well telegraphed.
Yeah.
But one thing I have to kind of keep in mind of this is it is journey before destination, right? That's part of my philosophy. And though it's hard for authors to believe, there have been studies done that say people enjoy stories more if they know the ending.
Yep.
We all disagree. We don't believe that, right? But statistically, people being able to anticipate things is better for the storytelling. I still like to surprise people. It's still part of my dramatic flair. It's just part of my practice and my craft. And usually what I try to do is I try to have a couple of things that have been very well foreshadowed that you are able to expect, and then hit you with that left hook of something that is foreshadowed but kind of in a hidden way. Like what happens with Taravangian at the end of this, right? Where theoretically, after the fact, it should feel inevitable that that's where it went, but can still surprise you. My goal is to have some of those in every book, but those get harder and harder to do as the fandom learns my tricks, and as it goes longer, and people have more time to philosophize, right? This is why Stormlight is 2 sets of 5 instead of one 10-book arc. Even though some of the things will persist into the second 5, I needed a kind of let's get all the stuff that I've properly foreshadowed dealt with, so that I can start foreshadowing new things and kind of let you have basically a mind reset button on the plot arcs that we're talking about, right? And whatnot. Again, it's not a reset really. The story continues on, but because I'll be able to reintroduce things and things like that in book 6, like it can feel like a new series to an extent, and can therefore start brains working a different direction, right?
Yeah.
Very cool.
So speaking of Taravangian, you killed Race this book.
Yes, I did.
Could you talk about why you decided to kill him off and have Taravangian be Odium instead? And, was that always part of the plan?
So I always work in a way where I have different options and opportunities. Was it always the thing that I was absolutely going to do? No. I keep myself open on some of these things. The reason that Reyes needed to go is because he had been essentially defeated at the end of Oathbringer. When Dalinar does not go over to him, right? And all of his rage and all of his everything he's trying to do cannot make that happen. He's defeated. At least in a philosophical sense. Now, you can bring a defeated enemy back to be a threat again, right? You can find a new way to make them a threat. But I knew in this book, Kaladin was not going to fall to him either, right? And once you've had 2 books in a row with the characters' machinations not pulling, not just being stymied by the heroes. I felt that Reyes I needed a different villain at that point, right? And I also think that though a lot of deep into the Cosmere people really are interested in the original shards and getting their stories and things like that, for the average reader, Taravangian is a much more identifiable villain. And I've been building him from book 1 to be not just really scary, but also a philosophical opposite to Dalinar. And these are all the reasons that this book needed to go the way that it did, which does, it has benefits and costs. The cost is that Odium stops being quite so much a scary, the evil you don't know, which the evil you don't know is a very powerful force in fantasy literature, right? And the evil you do know it just does different things. And I lose that evil you don't know, though you still have a bit of it because the whole kind of power of Odium, the shard itself, I wouldn't say has volition completely, but it's still there and it's a thing. And it is constrained by Taravangian and directed by Taravangian, but it is still kind of the rage of a deity separated from its morals should be a scary thing. And in the hands of someone who is essentially a fallible mortal, that should be an even more scary thing. But Reyes had gotten to the point where I no longer felt that he could be, if I were going to write the books the way I did, if I was going to have, so this basically became inevitable when I swapped and made Dalinar's book 3. Right?
Oh, sure.
Right.
Makes sense.
And at that point, I knew something big needed to shift. But fortunately, I had several options and of things. There is a version of the Stormlight Archive where this doesn't happen. Yes, I think it's a worse version, but it's until something is written, no matter how much it is in the outline, it's not canon even to me. And I like to be willing to reassess what I'm doing. But talking the other direction, the foreshadowing that I put into the books. The more I foreshadow, the more I do, the more that locks in what I need to do going forward, because I don't want to undermine that foreshadowing and whatnot. And so anyway, there's kind of a long-winded, perhaps a little wishy-washy answer to you. I can tell you why I made the decision, but I can't, the outlines are these things that are really organic because I'm always working on them. And we'll often have lots of kind of division points where I'm like, these are different places that could go because of the way I write characters, right? I'm sure this will cause contention, but I did not decide in the original outline who Shallan would end up with or who anyone would end up with, right? I've said this before. I write character relationships as I feel they are appropriate on the page, and I revise the outline to match how things are feeling and how it's going. And so I know that there are some shippers out there that are like, that means that there was a version of the ship I wanted and you didn't do it. It was the nefarious beta readers who forced you not to.
Not true. That is not true.
It was Kellen's fault.
We have heard that one before.
I'm sure you've heard that. I don't want to fuel that, because these decisions are made not based on necessarily beta reader feedback. These decisions are made based on me giving life to the characters and feeling where I feel they would legitimately go, and then rebuilding my outlines to match. And so while I outline a lot more than my contemporaries, I am not a slave to the outline. And I will change major things, such as moving Dalinar to be the flashback sequence for book 3, which had ramifications all down the line, or deciding that I need to do more with Eshonai and Venli earlier in the series, which has other ramifications to their viewpoints later on, because I feel it makes the best story. So,
which is great for our next question, because our next question is, how much do you plan in the Cosmere? So like there were a few things in Rhythm of War that were like, oh, this is a different direction. Like anti-investiture that Black Sphere Gavilar had in the prologue being anti-investiture, and like Testament and Shallan. Were like those always part of the plan, or options, or?
Those were always options, yeah. So anti-investiture has actually been pretty core for a long time. This was there are a couple of reasons for this. Number one, I need to get certain resources into the Cosmere for use in the future, right? And anti-investiture is one of those. Another reason being that I want to push Stormlight Archive more toward, as the word you used before, magic tech, right? Because I'm pushing Mistborn more toward Earth analog, right? With Earth technology, and then some cool, fantastical things thrown in. But when you're using the technology, like when you're using a radio on Scadrial, it's a radio, right? You know what a radio is. It works based on radio principles. And yeah, maybe you can do some wacky things with weight, right? But an airship's kind of an airship to them. Whereas I want Roshar, which is my kind of opposite end of that spectrum, not Earth analog, where an airship on Roshar is not an airship like you would imagine. It's not being propelled in normal ways. It's working off of all these weird magical things. And anti-investiture was an important thing to get in to the series for the future for that reason. It also was from book 1. I knew that I needed magical healing for Roshar, the stories I wanted to tell to work, right? And I needed some really powerful magical healing, particularly for the Knights Radiant, because of the stories I wanted to tell. And this meant that I was going to be very much undercutting the danger of physical violence in the Stormlight Archive as we moved forward, as the characters became Radiants, right? Like, it is really hard to kill a Radiant just in combat. And there need to be foils to that. Beyond that, because like from the first chapter of the first Cosmere novel, Elantris, death has not been the end. In fact, we start the first book with someone being resurrected, right? Like that's like
it's true.
Yeah.
One of the main themes of the Cosmere is a second chance at life, right? This is Raoden's story. This is Lightsong's story. This is Kelsier's story. This is this is a major theme of the Cosmere. And so I needed to be introducing into the Cosmere a dead is dead mechanic. And I considered Shardblades for that for a while. And then before I even released Stormlight, I'm like, no, can't be Shardblades, because like I can't have every battle that like once lots of people have Shardblades, then anyway.
Yeah. That's too dangerous.
Then there's no purpose in the magical healing, right?
Right.
And so I basically needed another tool for the late part of the Cosmere when people have figured out cognitive shadows and stuff like that. How do you destroy a cognitive shadow? Well, there are ways, but you know what? Throw some anti-investiture at them, and that's guaranteed, right?
Right.
You are gonna kill that shadow. So I've been pushing toward where to get this in, and this book felt like the right place. It was either this book or book 5. And where it settled into this book is when I finally made the decision that I was just going to go ahead and let Navani be a main character, which she'd kind of been pushing to be for a while, and I've been pushing back. And I'm like, no, I deserve to have a scientist, an actual straight-up scientist main character in the Stormlight who can dig into some of this stuff. I can self-indulge by doing that, as long as I balance it with Kaladin behind enemy lines fight sequences and things for a more traditional structure, because Navani scenes do not have a traditional structure.
No.
They're like, we are going to do science now, but we're making up the science also. So wrap in tight.
My mom found it interesting, Brandon. She read
it
the
was
book.
so good. I'm gonna hop out of order, but like the Navani and Raboniel storyline was one of my favorites in Rhythm of War, and I'm really sad that we probably are not going to get any more of Raboniel.
She was great.
Nope, that's
now.
Anti-investiture death.
Yeah.
So she's gone. I'm sorry.
We're maybe like fingers crossed Herald flashbacks. We might see a little more.
Yeah. You can see her in flashbacks, in the Herald flashbacks.
Yes.
Yeah,
she's so good. Maybe my favorite new character in Stormlight that we've had introduced later on.
Yeah. And well, the other thing I wanted to do with this book was really get some fused to show their viewpoints on life, because it's not something I've really been able to do yet.
Right.
So I had her waiting in the wings in order to, like, as Reyes, as Odium, became, in my mind, less of a threat because Dalinar had just completely defeated him. I also knew I needed a more personal antagonist for this book that we could approach in a different way. Like, Reyes is the unknowable evil, right? I wanted the knowable antagonist, not even necessarily evil-ish, in Raboniel. And so, yeah, I was really looking forward to being able to write her. And one of the decisions by being able to make Navani a main character by just saying, Brandon, I'm going to let you do this to myself. Let me pull off that dynamic between them that was extremely fulfilling to write.
Yeah.
As someone whose favorite character is Navani, this is the best Stormlight book ever.
Ian really likes it,
as far as I'm concerned.
Well, thank you.
He really likes Navani and this book a lot. As opposed to being sad for Raboniel dying, then there's Lezian, who we're really happy he's dead with anti-investiture.
Yes. Yeah. Speaking, he could not continue because talk about villains that have been defeated. Right.
Yeah.
This guy's whole thing is, I've never been defeated before. Oh, Kaladin beat me in part 1. Well, I've never been defeated twice. Oh, he beat me twice. 3 times? Yeah.
He needed to go.
He needed to go. In fact, the original draft that I submitted to my writing group didn't yet have that scene where he goes. I've been planning on it. I'm like, I'll get around to eventually. And they almost revolted. They're like, what? He's still alive? I'm like, no, he will go. I just have to find the right way to write the scene. So they didn't actually get to read that scene with Elle and him. So
It's definitely one of those Brandon ending scenes that are just like, wow, there's some weird stuff going on here and stuff.
So many new questions.
Yep.
All these weird feuds to have been around way too long.
Way too long.
Yep. The guy that they gave his name to Moash.
Yeah. I am very interested to see how Moash Teravangian dynamic's going to be in book 5. Like that's going to be a very different thing.
Yep, looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
There will be some fun things I can write there.
Cool.
Fan expectations they can be a very hot button issue for a lot of fiction, and we really saw a lot of that with like Yasna's plotline in Rhythm of War. Do you just have any further reflections on sort of the interaction between author and the expectations of fans, especially from like a representation standpoint?
This is the sort of area where actually fan interaction is very good for me, because it helps me see what, like, as a storyteller, my main desire and goal is to give people a satisfying experience, right?
Right.
And I don't want to make it sound too much like I hope I don't sound like I'm pandering, but one of the reasons for the big beta reads is I want to understand what people's reaction to my story is going to be. And I want to craft that reaction to be the one I want them to have, or one that I understand and am okay with, even if it's not, and so that's really, particularly in representation sort of things, I've said long ago from the get-go, my mandate to myself was to do a good job with this, right? Like that is one of my central personal goals and mandates in writing these stories. Is that if you run across someone who is like yourself in the books, that you feel I did a good job. Now, that's different from making them just like you, right? That's the thing, because everybody's individual experience, like you aren't going to even find two people with depression who approach depression in the same way. But I want it to feel authentic, even to the people who have more experience than I do. And I can't do that without watching fan interaction, right? Like that's how I come up. And that's how I know these things. And that's how I know if I'm doing a good job. And so at the end of the day, I won't let that make me make a character something I don't feel that they are. But I certainly can try out, like when the Yasna scene, right? I tried just to make sure, seeing how Yasna felt if she were lesbian when I wrote the scene. It didn't feel authentic to her character. And it turns out that writing it again with her being ace really did feel really authentic to her experience. And that was something that had been, fans had been pushing for, and I'd not really tried intentionally doing it until this book. And it was right. It was absolutely the right way to do the character. I wouldn't have gotten there without fan involvement, right? So this is something that I encourage fans to talk about and to point out where they feel I've made missteps. I'm not always going to agree. I do have to tell you that, right? Because I have that caveat of not everybody who is like you interacts with it the exact same way. And that's a thing that is dangerous for me to say, right? Because writing a character who's very different from myself, who am I to tell the person who has depression, right? That, well, not everyone has depression like you do. That could easily just become an excuse on my part. But it's also true, right? Like different people's interactions with these things are different. So it is a hard line to walk, right? Like if you get into dissociative identity disorder, right? Like the way different people interact with their surroundings, having DID is just really distinctive based on the individual and their alters. And I can do my best job, but if I try to blend everything, it'll actually feel less authentic. And so I do apologize that sometimes I'm going to do one and I'm going to pick a style and go with it. And it's not going to feel as authentic to you as if I had done it just like you are. That's not me saying don't bring it up. Just understand and keep in the back of your head that that is something that is really relevant to this conversation. Mm-hmm. And there will be things that I am just less good at than others. And I do apologize for that too. Pointing back to Matt and the Wheel of Time, like my first attempts at Matt were less good than I got him to be and never quite got as good as my Perrin or my Rand. And that's just limitations of my skills as a writer. So if you want to rewrite it in your head to be done better, I give that's another big kind of personal philosophy is you're okay having line item veto on my books, and your headcanon is definitely valid to you, and thumbs up, go ahead.
Makes sense. Mm-hmm. And in that same vein of representation, like Shallan's bisexuality was not intended initially.
No,
right?
It wasn't. I think it was there in the back of my brain.
Right.
That's when someone pointed that out to me, I'm like, wow, she really describes other women in a way that feels like, and I'm like, oh yeah, she totally does. But not being bisexual myself, then like, it's not a thing that I had even kind of realized I was doing, but I really feel like I was searching from the get-go, and I needed a fan to point it out to me. And then when I ran with that, I'm like, wow, that just works so well for how I've been writing her.
Yeah.
I think the person who reached out to you on Twitter was my very good friend Silver, who I still play D&D with.
Oh, cool. Well, give Silver my thanks. I will. That's an example of someone asking and helping the books be better. Because as an author, like you get very used to, basically you throw yourself, balls, like footballs that you're going to catch, right? And your gut says, this is the right time to toss this football. And then later on you catch them. And you get very good at doing this, and you start just doing a lot of things by instinct that later on, you're like, wow, I'm glad that I had the instinct to do that because I needed it later on. And your subconscious is working on a lot of things that this is how discovery writers write their books, right? This is how George Martin works for his entire career is he's lobbing long football Hail Marys and then catching them himself 5 years later. Not quite knowing how he was going to catch them.
Yeah.
Discovery writers tend to be better at that than outline writers in general because they practice it. But it is a thing that all writers do, in my experience.
Sure. That totally makes sense. So in Rhythm of War, when we see Vale in the scene in the bar where she's expressing interest in women, was that meant to confirm Shallan's bi in text?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought, but...
Yep. That was meant to be read as Vale, legitimately, I realize you could read that as she's just joking around or things like that, but that was Vale expressing interest in those ladies.
Well, I suppose what some people were saying is maybe Vile. Let's try that again. That Vale is bisexual and not Shallan, right?
Yeah, I would say that they are both, and Vale, kind of in a way to make it less threatening to Shallan, has started really only talking about women that way, right? Partially for Adolin's comfort and for Shallan's comfort, right? If that makes sense, right? It's more of a safe place because to them, they know she would not go and act on those if it were about men or women, but it'd be more threatening if she were talking about men that way.
Interesting. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
If that makes sense.
No, it does.
I definitely got the vibe that Vale was more the sort of person who was willing to say those sorts of things.
Right.
But knowing that a lot of the sort of speculation about Shallan went back to book one before Vale had even sort of become a character, we're like, that this has been with Shallan for a while, way back when.
Yep. And I don't think Shallan would express it, right? It's like, she might be too culturally biased to even acknowledge it, but Vale, no
issues.
Yeah.
But now Vale has been, that's one of the things, for instance, since we're talking spoilers, Vale has been incorporated, right?
Yep.
So Vale is Shallan now again, which is one of those things that that as I was doing it, I recognized could be controversial in the DID community because there are various different opinions about whether incorporating alters is actually the method is good for the individual or not. And the decision I made on this is it was good for Shallan in that circumstance. Using my best understanding of the psychology and the treatment recommendations and knowing both sides of that argument, it was the right thing for Shallan right then. That doesn't mean necessarily that she has to incorporate Radiant in order to be healthy. I will just point that out.
There was definitely been discussions on the forums about that with DID people, and it's been very interesting to read.
Yeah, we've had some really good threads from like plural members on 17th Shard, and I'm like, I'm learning a lot about the way this reads to somebody who lives this experience. It's very interesting.
And you know, that comes into like, I'm not always going to do it exactly like you, but I'm going to try to make sure that the sides are represented, right? Like the reason I tried to make it very clear, Rissyn isn't looking to and doesn't need to be healed to become whole as a character. That's not her arc, right? Like that's not the point with Rissyn. Rissyn is whole as a character as she is and has found her way there through her own experience and whatnot. So, and there's definitely a large community that talks about that in ways that are very positive and helpful. So,
yeah, that was great to read with Rissyn and Dawn Shard.
So I actually kind of want to bring us back around to Raboniel because she was such a phenomenal villain.
So good.
She's so good.
She was a great treat.
But like in a lot of like Navani's viewpoints, like Navani is like very uncertain of like just how genuine is Raboniel being, like beyond the obvious deceit concerning her true intentions, like did she really not know about Sunraiser being Elhokar's blade? Like, how true was her grief over her daughter's death? And like with Venli, like what were her intentions? Like revealing the survival of the listeners and dismissing her from service. Like, I just love Raboniel. I want to know everything about Raboniel.
Future
so
writer.
I'm only going to answer one of those.
Okay.
Right. Her grief over her daughter's death was completely authentic, as was her desire for bringing an end to the war. Like Raboniel, like that part of her is completely authentic and legitimate. Her motive is to make sure it can't keep going. Now, whether she's right in that, whether it can keep going with this or not, but it is a subject for discussion. Right. But she believed that this was the best way to make sure that the fighting ended. And that was her primary goal. And that was at cross purposes, even at times with Odium. So that is legit. Some of the other stuff I will leave subject to reader interpretation. How about?
That's fair. So there has been a question in the fandom ever since part 1, where we learned that the Thrill got tossed in the ocean.
Oh yeah,
and you commented that betas really wanted more information, which I can confirm is accurate.
Yeah,
and you were saying in Reddit
space for it.
Well, there's space now. How is it more?
There's space now. So they at Yasna's suggestion, which came through Hoyd, locked it in an aluminum box and threw it in the ocean. The argument for this being that anywhere they could hide it, the enemy could get to. And an unmade would be pretty easy to find in the cognitive realm. Right? You can't hide an unmade very easily. Aluminum's going to help a ton with doing that. So what you have to do is try to make it as inaccessible as possible. And the most inaccessible thing they could do is lock it in an aluminum box and throw it in the ocean. If they had kept it anywhere in the city or whatnot, then the enemy would have been able to find it very easily, even inside an aluminum box. Let's just say. This method was their best guess at being able to keep it out of the enemy's hands. It is not a great solution. Unfortunately, there just isn't one that they could find. As we talk about a certain other unmade who is somewhere locked in a gemstone that might come up in the next book, maybe. We'll talk more about this.
So I don't know if you're aware, but Ba Ada Mishram is like one of my favorite characters since Oathbringer. Okay. There's 3 mentions of her in Oathbringer, and I'm like, I don't care. She's amazing. Like, will she be amazing?
Well, I have to Raffo that, Eric.
That's fair. That's fair. I'll grab one of my Raffo cards that I have. But I just had to ask.
You can put another tally mark on your Raffo card.
Just a little Raffo counter.
Yep. But
we did try very hard to prune from Raffo questions for the most part. We're like, we don't want this to be a bunch of Raffo.
Yes. Yeah. But that one I knew I was going to get Raffoed because it's like, obviously. Yeah. But I hope she's awesome. That's all I'm saying.
So, what made you decide to canonize not 1, not 2, but 4 new shards? Like a full quarter of Aiden Albion in this book.
It had been long enough. I had been coy with them long enough, and I had worked out enough of the outlines moving forward that I knew which shards I needed and things like that. And so they had gotten locked in enough that I could just do it. And they would mention it, right? We're getting to the point that if I didn't start mentioning them, I have to do verbal gymnastics in the stories to not, right? Like when Harmony is trying actively to figure out what happened and who they all are and where they all are. And it was time for me to go ahead and stop dribbling that. The reason I was dribbling it is there were still a few I was deciding upon, right? And now that they're all locked in, there's no reason to hold it back. I don't hold things back from you guys out of glee. I hold them back because narrative drama, right?
That's right.
And because things are not locked in yet.
So there's still 2 we don't know. Do you have those locked down, or are those still in?
So I have those. Those are a little more vague. Like I haven't picked the words for them. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Totally.
Like I look for the right word, and sometimes I have like a word, but it's the wrong synonym, right? Like
you have the right concept.
Odium in this case would be hatred, which, like, hatred just kind of calling the villain hatred is just less, doesn't work in the same way that calling the villain odium works, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking for those right words. So,
and I guess in the books, right, like Hoyd could just tell Yasna at this stage, because like Hoyd knows, like
Hoyd knows. He could just be like, "Oh yeah, here they are." You know, this one's a terrible baker. That one is
terrible baker confirmed for a shard. No,
there's no mad theorizing which of the 16 is a terrible.
I'm pretty sure that's a joke.
I did like the setup of like tossing one name in the first epigraph, so he's like, oh, new shard name, and then the next epigraph we get 3 more. It's like,
that was incredible.
Okay, that's really knocking everyone.
That's the sort of stuff that you guys care about a lot. That the vast majority of fans are like, and then forget about. But they're
like, these epigraphs are sure a thing.
Yes. Yep. The epigraphs, I do let myself go a little even more further along certain things toward Cosmere stuff than even in other parts.
But that's just foreshadowing, really, right?
Yeah.
In a sense.
And you always know we appreciate it, so.
Yeah.
Yep.
Looking toward book 5, is the prologue with Gavilar just going to be enormous at this point? Trying to wrap up all the rest of the threads?
I do need to wrap up a lot of threads.
20,000 word prologue.
So we'll see. I haven't written it yet. We'll see how long it gets. I hope I'm not straying into Robert Jordan prologue territory. 90,000 word prologue. Oh, really? Okay. So this is the book we read before we read the book.
The pre-book, the appetizer book.
If there was any time to do that in your writing, though, Gavilar has a lot of stuff to do on his checklist on that night. So
he does. He does.
Lots of irons in the fire.
Yep.
Yep. So you're probably gonna raffo this, and I've accepted this.
Okay.
But this has been driving me insane. So in Dawnshard, we learned that intent and command are 2 different things, whereas like in Warbreaker, Vasher is clearly kind of conflating these two into just saying it's the command. What's the difference between intent and command?
Intent encompasses more understanding.
So that would be more the visualization.
Command is specifically narrow, right? For instance, if I were to say to a lot of times these things are gonna be conflated because they basically can be. Like if Vasher creates an awakened thing and says, "Go get me those keys," the intent is, I need the keys to get out of here. I want to be free. The command is, go fetch keys. Those are 2 different things, but they are working toward the same goal. It is important in Cosmere terms that the intent is understood, even if sometimes the words that can speak them are clunky and smaller in scale by nature than the intent.
Interesting.
That makes sense to me.
I can see the new podcast outline just like scrolling behind.
I had a video outline for talking about capital I intent because I was so excited that capital I intent was a thing now with Rhythm of War. But then I'm like, I don't know what the difference between these 2 are, so I never made the video.
Let's say that the intent of a shard encompasses more than the word that the shard is described by.
Oh, certainly.
Right?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yep.
And it's a similar thing that the intent of a command is often vaster than the actual words spoken. And the magic can grasp the intent, not just the command, depending on how the magic system and how good you are at it and things like that.
Interesting.
The words are there to focus intent. How about that?
Ooh, bringing the old word focus back into it. Let's talk about body focuses. What's going on? That's a joke.
I'll throw you a kernel on that one in the 5th book if you watch for it.
Ooh, interesting.
And
that old Rasharan philosophy will actually be relevant for a small thing happening in the fifth book.
Very curious.
Interesting.
Yep. Yeah. It's going to be great.
Yeah. And so, just to make things easier for us on the wiki, to make it very clear, Kelsier and Thydakar. At what point did you decide Kelsier would be part of the Stormlight Archive?
Kelsier is not. Thydakar isn't even. His minions are. Pretty early on. Right? Like, Era 3 is all... There's a whole lot of Kelsier in Era 3. Mm-hmm. As soon as I decided that when I outlined the 9 books, as I was working on the original Mistborn trilogy, I knew that there needed to be some more have him influencing the world at large. How shall we say? The universe at large. He is a really fun character to write because he does not fit in boxes very neatly.
He does like meddling very much.
True.
He does like meddling, and he does like and so like there are a lot of things I want to do with Era 3 that I wanted to make sure. Like, one of my big concerns when I was building the outline with Kelsier, for all 9 books, back when it was 9 before I added the Wax and Wayne books, right? Mm-hmm. Back when, like, 2004, when I was doing a lot of the big outlining for the Cosmere. Emily's got to dig out that paper I once wrote out for her. This was, so I guess she that would have been 2004 till 2006, because I got married in 2006, right? And it was 2007 where I drew that thing out for her, I think. Might have been, actually, no, it was 2006 summer. It was summer 2006. Because we were at, I didn't have my laptop with me, which is, I wasn't allowed at the family reunion. And so I instead had a notebook, because if I'm not allowed my laptop, I will have a notebook. Yep. And that's why we have a physical copy of this thing, because I was writing it in my notebook. But when I was doing all that, one of my big concerns was how to make sure people kept interested in Mistborn while I was potentially spending years and years away from it. At that point during that outline, I was going to write Dragonsteel before Stormlight, right?
Oh, right.
And I started trying to do that in 2007.
Right.
But either way, I knew, we're talking 5 to 10 years away from Mistborn at that point. And I'm like, how can I make sure that this stuff, and so I outlined Secret History, which I could release in the meantime, and a potential Secret History follow-up, right, that I've mentioned before that I don't know if I'll ever write. And it wasn't until like 2010 or 11 that I'm like, why didn't I just write some short stories in this world? To keep people focused on it. And then I tried one and it was bad. And I'm like, what if I just wrote a little novel? I can do a little novel, right? And that's where Alloy of Law came from, right?
Technically
these
speaking,
were all solutions to the same problem, which is people can't forget about Scadrial. It's really important. They can forget to an extent about Cell. It's still important, but it's not important on the level that Scadrial is going to be, right? Like, Scadrial has so many fingers in the technology of the future and things like that and so this was another method to make sure that we had some Scadrian influence happening while I was in other worlds, if that makes sense. Yeah. It turns out we ended up getting all of them. We got Secret History and the Alloy of Law, and we got the little fingers in the Stormlight Archive. But it was important to me that the fingers in the Stormlight Archive be through the frame of reference of the Stormlight Archive, right?
Yeah. I definitely think, like, Shallan learning about Cosmere stuff is a good intro for Stormlight-only readers to get interested in the Cosmere, kind of like Secret History is for Mistborn-only readers, in a sense.
Right. Like, in Roshar, if you learn, hey, there's more planets out there, and they see Roshar as something with a very valuable resource. Like, that's enough of an intro to the Cosmere to make it work in Roshar and to make you prep for kind of the future, right? And so that's why I did it the way I did. And also knowing that people were more okay with this. But also I needed to get it in. It almost maybe should have done it earlier. Like, I saw people guessing that one, like, by Words of Radiance, right?
Wow, really? Wow,
yes.
Jeez.
By the time I was releasing Words of Radiance, I was seeing fan theories that are like, what if this?
Yeah, it's like throwing darts on a dartboard, like, this person's this other person.
It might be that. I mean,
but
the whole philosophy of the Ghostbloods was supposed to dovetail with survivorism, survival of the fittest type stuff, very much. And so I'm hoping that, from the things that they read in that, they were able to connect the philosophies rather than just throwing darts at a dartboard.
Sure.
But, it could have also been the dartboard thing.
You look so thrilled, Alyx.
It's funny because we already recorded the Kelsier podcast, but it's going to come out after this one.
Yeah.
And you've put me in a very weird situation because I loved the Ghostbloods so much. I mean, I guess I still love the Ghostbloods. I have a terrible villain crush on Mraize. He's one of my favorite characters. And Kelsier drives me crazy. And so finding out that now they are intrinsically linked, I'm like, no. Kelsier's ruining my favorite thing. But it does make sense, I have to admit. So
it's okay. Mraize does not have to do what he's told.
That's true. That's true.
And Yaddle, who, that's the other thing. Once I dropped Oathbringer and they're like, hey, this is a southern continent Scadrian running around. This is pretty obvious connection to Scadrial. I had to eventually canonize that. But, Yaddle, let's just say that Yaddle is not necessarily... Don't consider people in the Ghostbloods flunkies. That is not a very Ghostbloodish philosophy.
I guess that makes sense. They're all trying to backstab each other.
I have to ask about...
No, they're not allowed to.
No, they're not allowed to backstab. Sorry.
That's true. Other Ghostbloods are off limits.
Specific rules.
Yes.
Because they need them to be very strong. Specific rules. Because if you have, let's just say, an organization of people who are drawn to the way Kelsier works, you need some really strong rules. That's the sort of thing where when he is just with his crew, his force of personality and the people he individually picks, you're not going to have that problem, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. I always imagine, you can relate to Tor books. They're all assassins. I mean, or when Tor really functions well back in the 90s, it's because Tom Doherty could keep a close eye on everything, and he liked his editors being a little bit in competition with each other, right? And he structured his organization so that if you picked an author who did well, you got bonuses based on how well the authors did, which is just a way of working that could really lead to an unhealthy office environment, right?
Yeah.
If you think about it. But if you have Tom there making sure that doesn't become the case, and if you have, Harriet there watching and making it a good incentive, not a bad incentive,
right,
then it all works really well. And you have one of the strongest sci-fi publishers that's ever existed, because everybody was incentivized to find really good stuff, but they were corralled by Tom Doherty and kept it from becoming toxic.
Right.
But now that Tom retired, I think they're changing a lot of that, because it's grown too big for one person to watch over, right? And it's the same thing with Kelsier. In the immediate organization of Kelsier, you're going to find a well-bonded crew of people handpicked who are going to work together as a team, and you aren't going to have to worry about too much backstabbing. Less than average for the type of organization they are. How about that? But if his structure is outside of his direct manipulation, the type of people who would be attracted to the organization he makes,
are not going to be nice.
You're gonna have some problems. Mraize would not say that he's not nice. Mraize would just say that that his niceness is an analogous threshold that does not intersect with the threshold of competence and capability of things he is trying to achieve. Those things just don't need to overlap in his life.
Yep.
Excellent. Excellent.
He'd say he's a very nice person.
Yeah.
I find him very nice to read about, so it works.
He was very nice to Shalon by his definition.
He was very nice to Shalon?
He was very nice to Lift by his definition of things. Think of all the things he could have done with Lift.
Oh, boy. I love him so much.
He gave her as a present to
ancient beings.
An ancient being who ruled the tower, who, could properly take care of one such as Lift.
Mraize is very nice.
You heard it here. It's canon.
Yep.
Mraize is nice.
Yep. Mraize is nice. He also wanted to keep his fingers, and he felt that was a better way to keep his fingers, is to make sure Lift was someone else's problem.
That's fair.
He got what he wanted, which was being able to capture her. Which was not that easy, he would say. So he deserves to have whatever reward, because it was quite a difficult enterprise on his part. She is not easy to capture.
All you needed was AVR floating around and a fair chemist, and not to mention the other fair chemist in the book.
Lots of...
those squadrons got to keep an eye on things. They like the metal. Haha.
Oh, that was terrible. Oh, goodness.
I liked it.
Took me a second. I have to ask about using the word avatar for Thydakar sending avatars. Does Kelsier actually have anything resembling a real avatar? Is he just using the word and lying through his teeth?
Oh, yeah, he's mostly lying through his teeth.
Okay, that makes sense.
Called that one.
So, yeah, basically, this is not canon, all right?
Okay.
Because I might come up with a better, but in my head, I have him with a large cloak with a Sion on top, imitating his face. Something like that.
That is so close to what I actually imagined was happening.
That's actually true.
Yes.
Yeah.
You'll see next week, viewers.
So vindicated.
It's true.
Yeah. So it was something along those lines. He wants them to think that he is capable of getting to Roshar in a meaningful, physical way. Spoiler, he can't get off schedule, and it's really annoying to him. So, at least by this point in the continuity. In fact, a little past it, right? Because the Wax and Wayne books. Wax and Wayne. So
I think they
Wax and Wayne are before. So right now, Rhythm of War in the main timeline is the furthest along we've been. Right? Six of Dust is technically, but non-novella. Rhythm of War is the furthest along because
I thought Era 2 was between book 5 and 6. That's what you've said before.
Yeah, no, Alloy's between, isn't it?
That's what you've said before.
Alloy's further on. Yeah, so as of the Alloy era, he is still unable to get off of Scadril.
Guess we'll learn about that in Era 3, if it's all Kelsier stuff. Well,
yes,
I guess
Era 3 will definitely involve some Kelsier stuff. Just to say he's perturbed.
That no good can come from that.
So
he is perturbed.
So since you brought them up, I'm going to skip ahead a little.
Yeah.
Sions, we saw in the cognitive realm. So why are Sions stuck as floating balls of light in the cognitive realm while Truthbren get to be people-shaped? I feel that is unfair.
That is a little unfair, isn't it? Boy, Cell has all sorts of unfair things going on, but they can leave Cell.
It's true.
So there's some sort of clue there, but lots of unfairness to the poor, to everybody from Cell in various ways. But the thing that is not unfair is they're able to get places.
Just gotta escape the deadly plasma, no big deal.
If they can escape the deadly investiture plasma covering the cognitive realm, not even covering, like suffusing, right?
Sounds
the
very
cognitive realm where they
pleasant.
are, the densities, the expansive densities. They can escape that. They can go places.
Maybe they used to have bodies in the cognitive realm and they just melted away in the plasma.
like my name is an Aeon, so if I were in the Cosmere, I would be a Aeon.
That's right. There you would be. You'd be floating along.
Yeah. You could be on top of Kelsier's heads, though, so doesn't that sound good?
I'll be honest, I couldn't decide if I should use a Sion there at the end or a Tamukek. In one draft, it was a Tamukek. And then I thought, Sions are way more interesting because they have volition, right?
Right.
Tamukek is just a bone. You guys have read Dragonsteel, right? You guys have.
I have
not. No, very few other people have. I'm very excited.
Well, anyway, it was
the
a Tamukek originally, and then it was a Sion that was back to Tamukek, and then I released it as a Sion. So
yeah. So this is the second time you've answered one of my questions by referencing Tamukek.
It's true. It's true.
You must ask this question sort of thing a lot.
Well, because it was a couple of years ago at BookCon, which is the only other time I've met you. I was asking about Singer Gemhearts being connected to Fane Life, and he says they're related to Tamukeks with no context. I'm like, what?
Yeah, look
I
at
was
this. Look,
smiling and nodding.
Yes.
I mean, if you want to send it to me, I will take it.
I'll release it for the Words of Radiance Kickstarter, like I said.
I'm very excited for other people to actually read it and be as just as confused as I was.
Basically, there's not a whole lot that's canon in that anymore. The Shodel are, the dragons are, and the Tamukeks are, right? But all the Hoid stuff is not really canon anymore. He'll get a completely new book backstory. I have kind of really done some work lately on the Aethers in ways that I really think is working. So I think I can start canonizing Aethers, sneaking into the mainline Cosmere books.
Interesting.
Whether I can ever write the book about the Aethers is another question. But you should see more than just little cameo pieces now that I'm sure about some of the ways they work and things like that. I just I made some kind of major breakthroughs in how I wanted that to all connect.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Do you ever worry, when you actually need to write Hoid's backstory, that it that's a lot of pressure in a way?
It
Hoid's
is a
backstory.
lot of pressure. Yeah. I am not worried about the book being great because the story that I have for it is a great story. What I am worried about is what random things have I said in books that I didn't write down in the wiki that I need to make good on, that he's mentioned doing at some point, right? Those are the things I worry about.
I think
the actual story is really solid for Dragonsteel, the new one. And I think people will really like it. I think it does cool things, right? But
very cool.
We will see. We'll see if I can. Right. The longer it goes without me writing it, the more expectations there will be on it. And so, I should be telling people, look, it is just a book like the other ones, right? It is hopefully a great book that you will really love, but it is just a book. And it's once I write it, it can no longer be all the things you're imagining it to be.
Yeah. Right.
And I apologize for that. I do want to do it. But it is just a book. It's going to read like a lot of my other books.
But you're going to have plenty of time to think about it to make sure it's really awesome, right?
Yeah. It will be in first person, which is going to be, it's the only planned first person Cosmere series.
Interesting.
So that will set it off and be distinctive. in ways I think will be cool.
Yeah.
I think I need to make good on my Renarin fan
yes, that's true.
obligations.
Okay.
And can I ask about Gliss and Toomey, which are Relaine and Renarin Spren, which obviously they have some weirdness from Jaanat, but
yes,
they seem very, very different from the other Mist Spren we see, whose name is Dreaming Though Awake.
Yes.
And sometimes they seem like they sort of talk like Ink Spren with that like focus on the be verb at the end of sentences and things like that. Is there a reason why they're so very different from, I mean, we've only seen one other Mist Spren, but.
Yes, that's, there are reasons, indeed.
Great.
So, let's be honest. There is a bit of fun. Excuse me. There is a bit of fun to Raphoing. I'm sure that you have.
Yeah. Like I will give you more as the series progresses. Remember, Renarin has right now in the sequence book 7, right? And so
can't come soon enough.
You are going to have an entire Renarin book with its own flashback sequence and things like that you can look forward to.
That'll be Alex's favorite Stormlight book.
It's already scheduled as the favorite. So,
so
yep.
It'll be, Renarin in his 30s. He'll be older.
It's gonna be awesome.
Maybe wiser.
Super cool.
We'll see.
I'm excited to see older Renarin. That's gonna be amazing, I think. And like older Lift, and that's gonna be great.
I will say I'm super psyched about the sort of Relainarin reveal that we've had recently. It was one of those things at Reading Rhythm of War, I'm like, oh, wow, there's a lot of really cool chemistry here. And I don't think it's ever going to be canon, but I'm just going to love it quietly in my heart and tell other people that I think it's cool. And then finding out
Oathbringer too, if you go back to Oathbringer.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, yeah, the scene with in Rock's point of view, I was like, oh, that's such a. I was just so glad that it's actually happening. Oh,
it is.
It warms my little Renarin loving heart.
That'll be great.
So, I looked for a place to get into this book. I actually wrote to the team and said, should I put this in this book? They're like, no, if it will feel clunky, just do it in book 5. And so, yeah.
I mean, I think it was there enough that a lot of us readers got that the chemistry was there and it could work very well.
I think you can really do it justice, because doing a same-sex relationship and do it really well.
Right. Well, having 2 viewpoint characters also, that's kind of one of my go-tos, right? To avoid tokenism, try to make multiple characters who think differently, right? Like one of the worries was with Renarin being autistic, I don't want to conflate these 2 aspects of his personality, but having Relaine there lets me have diversity among a given representation in a single book, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which is just way more comfortable for me to write. Because it lets me make sure that I'm making people their personalities and not their defining attributes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Kaladin has depression. Kaladin is not depression, right? And that's a really important thing. And if it's something that I'm less familiar with personally, it's more important that I have a variety of viewpoints. Even if it's something like making sure that Jasna is atheist and Kaladin is agnostic, and that I am approaching their different worldviews from their personalities rather than as a cliche of some sort. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a quick lightning round. Then we're going to play Who's That Cosmere character because you demanded it. So in Oathbringer, race refers to a group called the Tisarch that are supposed to secure the Oathgate. What does that term refer to? I thought they were going to be one of the types of fused, and so I was just surprised that was not the case.
I will canonize that later. It very well may be one of the types of fused. We'll see. Theorize. Go ahead.
Fun.
It doesn't have the right suffix.
Yeah, that is true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is actually referencing an episode we did a couple of weeks ago where we had a very long diversion about Kusasesh the Protector at the end of the episode.
That's true.
So wait, who's what?
Kusasesh the Protector.
Okay, yeah.
So like every day in Castor, Kusasesh emerges from the bay at 7:46 in the morning. If the Iriali started practicing daylight savings time, would Kusasesh emerge at the old 7:46 or the new? Would it make a difference if all of Roshar was
They would not change their time based on the clocks being changed.
Interesting.
Okay.
That's wild.
I thought it was tangential enough that I could actually get an answer.
Yeah, that's right.
You did get an answer. Yeah.
Little fun one. We've had some discussion, people wondering whether Taln actually broke the Oath Pact, or did he just did something else happen? Like he just got too crazy to be able to hold the Oath Pact back, or something else, or is that all
break
totally
from torture?
That's Rapho.
All right.
But there are hints in the stories talking about that. So it is a question I expect people to be asking.
There we go. Still in the air.
Still in the air.
So you've recently said that Rosharans call everything surge binding. So my question is, does Chris call what the fuse do surge binding?
Yes.
Interesting. We still don't know what void binding is, but we'll get there eventually, I'm sure.
You will.
Hey, I lost that debate.
I eventually have to get to all these pictures of the heralds too that I've been putting in the books. I'm going to do some fun stuff anyway.
So let's do something fun. Let's go on to who's that Cosmere character?
This character is from Roshar.
Menace, Tien,
Taln,
Raise,
Void in drag on a horse.
It's time for who's that Cosmere character? Caw.
Oh man.
So this is how
I feel like
game...
I'm going to be really bad at this because you're going to pick like
no.
What's the name of the woman that the guy in the interlude where he was in the Pure Lake is courting?
No. So these are going to be characters you recognize. We don't like characters that are mentioned just like once ever. So like the best ones are ones that like have good clues, but are of characters that you like will remember. And so I guarantee you, they are definitely characters you will absolutely remember.
That I will know. Okay, good.
Absolutely. Yes. I'm not trying to trick you there. So the way the game's played, there's 5 clues. You get to guess after each clue. And so we thought because you're on, you can always do the first guess.
Okay.
So
that's nice.
Yeah. So this first one is sent by Lady Astronaut. And
fun username.
Mm-hmm.
And clue 1 is this character has killed many people.
This character has killed many people. Wow, that's a really specific clue.
Oddly, doesn't narrow it down that much.
Nightblood.
It is not Nightblood.
Yes.
I'm going to guess Vin.
It's not Vin.
Good one. I'll go ahead and go Kelsier.
It is not Kelsier.
Okay.
Clue 2. This character goes by multiple names.
Okay. That does not narrow it down a ton either, does it? Well, let's see. Multiple names has killed lots of people.
Yes.
Vasher.
Not Vasher, but I think that's a good guess.
Oh boy.
Elof.
It is not Delof.
Oh, good. That's a good guess too. Yeah,
it's true.
I don't know.
It's extra stress because Brandon's on, so it's like,
I was trying to be like, I gotta.
This is where you look at the bookcase and be like, "What book?"
Yeah, I know. I moved away from my bookshelves. I don't have them behind me anymore.
You could guess Vina. She goes by multiple names. We don't know that she's killed lots of people, but it's implied she knows how to kill people. She hasn't done a lot of killing on screen, though, is the thing.
I'll do Moash? I don't feel like he's killed lots of people, but
it's not Moash. So
it's not a good guess. I'll have to keep
clue 3.
thinking.
This character is a father.
I mean, I thought about Dalinar, but he doesn't go by multiple names, really.
I mean, he goes by the Blackthorn. All right, I'll say Dalinar.
It's not Dalinar.
Yeah, that's too obvious.
No, sometimes we get it first clue on like something like that. It's like, is it Kelsier? Yes, it's Kelsier. Like that happens.
Yeah.
Multiple names, father, killed lots of people.
Is it Taravangian?
It's not Taravangian.
Oh.
Is it
that's
Rashek?
a great... Well, yeah. Who'd you ask?
Rashek.
It is not Rashek. Yeah, that's true, because he did have kids. We didn't talk about that. But
I have canonized that.
I know. Clue 4. This character has 2 siblings.
Oh, boy. Wow.
All right, who has 2 siblings? Let's see. Father, no. Okay, so that eliminates a lot of people.
It really does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now I have to search back. Who have I explicitly said has 2 siblings? So that eliminates Adolin. That eliminates Renarin. Well, yes, Renarin. That eliminates Yasna and Elokar. Well, I guess father eliminates Yasna.
I like how you're doing
And
exactly
Aelin.
what we do and go to immediately to Rosharan characters. Because there's a lot of them.
But let's see.
Like Light Song doesn't work.
No.
Oh, man. This is a really good... Whoever sent this in.
Silence doesn't work. Let's see. Killed lots of people. I'm searching through the novellas.
Yep.
And
I don't remember how many siblings this person has, but maybe they do. Is it Suit?
Oh, it's not Suit.
Okay. I was like, maybe Wax had another uncle.
they're saying Callan over here. Callan's not a father.
True.
Yeah. So it can't,
I like how everyone in the background's playing too. This is good. This is good. I like it.
I mean, it's not Ham, who we know is a father.
I want to guess Kai-Ein, but I don't think there's a 3rd sibling there.
Right. Yeah.
Do you
I
guys
only
got to
talk
pass?
about
Get clue 5? You can pass if you want.
Kai-Ein's a good guess. Let's see. He is a father.
He is a father.
He
He's
is
killed
a
many
killer.
people.
He does have multiple names
And has 2 siblings.
But we know of only one sibling, right?
Yeah.
Or did I mention a sister? I don't think I mentioned a sister to them.
I haven't read Elantras in years. So. If it's someone from Cell, I won't get it. So
Kai-Ein is Serene's uncle, the chef, who is also Crushed Throat, the pirate.
Is that one of your guesses?
Ryuk.
What's that?
Is that one of your guesses?
Yes, that's a guess.
Okay, it's not Kai-Ein.
Okay. Yeah. Kai-Ein's a good one to pick for something like that because people don't think of him as having killed a lot of people.
Yeah, right. Exactly. He's so friendly. Except for all the piracy.
Right.
Yeah. I'm going to pass.
Okay, all right.
I think I might know who it is. I have a new guess. Okay.
Clue
We'll see
5. This character is a sliver.
What? Okay, never mind. I don't think it works anymore.
We already guessed Rashek, so that one's
It's not Rashek.
that one's
Yep.
pretty obvious. Okay, who else is a sliver?
And I guessed Vin,
did
and
guess
she's
Vin.
not a father,
Yep.
so
Definitely guessed Vin. Who else has been a sliver in the books? That should narrow it down really fast
it
for us.
should.
Uh-huh.
You guys are gonna love the answer.
Oh boy, what have you done?
Oh.
This is some trick.
Is it going to be goofy? It's not going to be like one of the Rashadium or something like that.
Now, animals we have decided are characters, and I did win the last Who's That Cosmere character game show because someone else guessed the wrong Rashadium and I guessed the right Rashadium, and I won because of that.
Characters. Who else has been a sliver? Who's held the power and given it up? Or how did it be expended?
Stated specifically is a sliver.
Yes. In this last book, I stated someone was a sliver, I think. Is
that true?
Didn't I?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I've forgotten everything I know about the Cosmere.
Do you want me to say it? You guys giving up?
No, I want a minute more.
Okay.
To consider this.
That's fine.
Like, who have I canonized in a word of Brandon as being a sliver? Or did I say it in the actual books?
That is entirely
don't use that
possible.
terminology very much.
Yeah. I was gonna guess. I don't think it works anymore, but just to have a guess on the table, I'll go with Spook.
It's not Spook. He was a dad. Yeah. That's true. He had many kids.
Dad. He had kids. He would fight different names. I don't know that he killed lots of people, but he did kill some people.
We have,
it
didn't really work, but whatever.
Not a sliver, though.
Yeah, but he doesn't have two siblings, I don't think.
I couldn't remember if any siblings were mentioned in that one flashback.
Yeah, that one scene where he's with Clubs. I don't think I did.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No idea.
The Lopen would probably claim to have been a sliver at some point. He could probably figure out something in his past that counts.
But have you already said that he's a sliver?
Yes, I have not. All right, who is it?
It's the Stormfather.
Oh, okay.
Ooh,
right.
Yeah.
He has two siblings, killed many people.
Yeah.
So who said the Stormfather in the background? Was that Kara?
Okay. Adam got it. Okay.
Adam got it. All right,
good job.
Good. And is a father.
That's a good one.
I actually did say it right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Ooh.
But you didn't say it was your guess.
That's true.
That's the trick.
No.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
there you are.
So like you'll recognize them. They're not like, we once had like XTs, like which was mentioned once, and I'm like, we can't do these ever again. That's too like esoteric. Yeah. No one's gonna remember that. All right.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna do one more. This one is sent by Lightwing 8888. And clue 1 is this character can write.
Okay.
Right.
I have to guess first. Right. Yeah.
You can do it.
Who can write? Chris can write.
It is not Chris.
Gautona from Emperor's Soul.
Oh, no, it's not them.
I'm going to throw it out to my boy Renarin.
It's not Renarin. Clue 2. This character has/had a romantic interest. Sometimes we get really stuck on like, oh, this character was someone. It's like, oh, does that mean they're dead or something? Like, things like that. So
got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Can write and has had a romantic interest.
Yes.
Or has one. Yasna.
It's not Yasna.
Elend.
It's not Elend.
I'm going to keep going for Rosharnman. Dalinar.
It's not Dalinar. But Dalinar would work really great for clue 3. This character is involved in an attempt to conquer a kingdom.
You're welcome for knocking that out, guys.
Involved in an attempt to conquer a kingdom.
That's right.
Okay.
Is it Bluefingers?
It's not Bluefingers.
I was going to guess Bluefingers.
Yeah.
Involved in an attempt to conquer a kingdom. Can write. So Sabron?
It's not Susabron.
Kind of was involved?
Yeah.
In an attempt?
Yeah.
That was my other guess that I was going to do.
I have a new guess.
Did you guess?
He writes. So was that a no?
No, it's not Susabron, no.
Okay.
Did you guess, Alyx? I don't know.
Boy. No, I was trying to save guesses and they got taken. We already said Elend, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Oh boy. Ooh, I think we just had him as who's that Cosmere character, but one of his study buddies, Jastes.
Oh no, it's not him.
Okay.
Good guess.
That is good guess. Clue 4, this character has no children.
I know who it is. I'm pretty sure I know who it is.
Whoa.
But I'm going to let Brandon go first.
Oh dear. Okay.
Ian probably has it. I don't even get to think about it, right?
Involved in the attempt to conquer a kingdom.
Yes.
Wraithen?
It's not Wraithen.
Okay.
Is it Kelsier?
It's not Kelsier.
Oh, is it not Kelsier?
Yeah, it's not Kelsier.
No. I depended on you, Ian. Now I have to come up with something. You've let me down. Oh boy. Boy. What were the clues again?
Can write, has / had a romantic interest, involved in an attempt to conquer a kingdom, has no children.
Is it Venli?
It's not Venli. Clue 5. This character is from Roshar.
Oh
is
boy.
from Roshar.
Yes.
Okay.
Usually clue 1 is this character is from Roshar or not from Roshar, which usually is a standard clue 1.
Okay.
But
all right. Okay. Can write, has no children.
Yes.
Involved in an attempt to conquer a kingdom. Did I miss one?
Had a romantic relationship.
Had a romantic relationship.
Oh.
So.
Oh, what's his name?
You guys are guessing wit?
No, I was.
No, my team over here.
Oh.
I mean, he can write.
He can, yes.
What kingdom is he involved in trying to conquer? He was there. Oh, okay. Involved in can mean he was there, not tried to himself.
I would say heavily involved, let's say.
Yeah,
let's make this easier. Heavily involved.
Right.
Yeah.
You mean tried to conquer, like active participant rather than
correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You're asking the real who's that Cosmere character questions because we're like, what does it mean to be a friend?
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Right,
what does that mean?
Paladin was involved in an attempt to conquer the kingdom. He was just preventing it, right?
It's true.
Right.
It's true.
He was heavily involved.
That's right.
If it's an attempt to conquer the kingdom. Wait, did this say has no children?
Has no children.
Oh, then Raboniel no longer has any children.
Oh, it's not Raboniel.
Okay. Do you do questions like that are tricky? Because the Stormfather one is a little bit tricky.
That one is a little bit tricky, but I
you know?
liked it because it was the Stormfather, and it's like, oh yeah, we all remember the Stormfather.
But he also counts because they call Syl his daughter. So he totally counts as both being father in the name. But it would be tricky if you were just counting it because it was in the name.
Right. Yeah.
Is it? I've done this before too, where I forgot his name.
That's
the guy who wrote the In-World Way of Kings.
Oh, Nohadon.
Nohadon.
Yes. Not Nohadon.
Yes.
I always want to say Taravangian. And I'm like, I know it's not Taravangian.
It's like the exact opposite.
He was
of
involved in the conquering of a kingdom. That's a good guess.
Like he won his kingdom through blood, and then later wrote philosophy.
I'm gonna guess Eli Sidious.
It is Eli Sidious.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good question. Good guess.
There you go. Ian gets it again.
But no one got the first one. So
it's true. Stumped us.
All right. Well, Brandon, we hope you enjoyed being on the show. I hope we didn't ask too in-depth the questions. We wanted like more broad questions so that you could talk about the writing, and I found it very interesting. I hope you all listened.
I think it was the right mix of pushing me to say some things that would be of more interest directly to this community.
Yeah.
Like there are things I can't necessarily get into in my mainstreams. Because, even though our spoiler one was the most viewed one, wasn't it?
I loved that you opened with like, so yeah, about Thydakar. Don't say the Thydakar's name in the chat, and then the chat's just like Kelsier all over the place. But
they do that.
But it was fun.
We shook free a few new Raffos.
Yeah,
I'm happy you guys are doing this. I'm happy you're having success.
Yeah, and we hope to have you on before 2030.
Yeah.
If you ever have a hankering to let secrets go, like
yeah. But I mean, this was good.
I have to let Wheel of Time secrets go very soon here, right? The 10-year anniversary is in 2 years now, where I get to reveal major Wheel of Time spoiler secret things from the last book.
Interesting.
So I have to do that in a Wheel of Time stream, but maybe there'll someday be some similar things for the Cosmere I can do.
Cool. Well, I think this was really nice because you couldn't tour, right? So thanks for being on. But of course, you get more writing time not touring, so that's nice too.
I do get more writing time.
Yeah.
I've had lots of time to do random stuff. In fact, I have to go write a scene from the Mistborn screenplay tonight.
Ooh,
my
fun.
job for tonight, the first actual screenwriting for it being written tonight.
Awesome.
Very fun.
You can find us on 17shard.com for all your news, discussion, theories, and fun that you could ever want. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, subscribe on YouTube, and all the stuff. If you like this, you can support us on Patreon if you want. And we will see you all next time for Brandon not being on the show. But that's obviously. But see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.